Welcome to our deep dive into the sometimes dark world of murder.
Yeah.
We're going to be guided by Patrick Morgan's new book,
Huh.
The Anatomy of Murder, and we'll be exploring everything from ancient techniques to modern advancements.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about this book is that he doesn't just list out
Yeah.
oh, here's a bunch of ways to kill someone.
Right.
It's more than that. He actually goes into the societal and psychological context
Yeah.
that surround these acts.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
Morgan starts with the fundamental definition of murder.
Right.
The unlawful killing of another person with malice aforethought,
Right.
meaning it was intentional.
Intentional. Right.
He then delves into the nuances of different categories like first degree, second degree,
Yeah.
and manslaughter.
Manslaughter. Right.
I mean, just those little legal distinctions are key to understanding the severity
Yes.
and the intent behind the act.
Absolutely. It's not just about the act itself.
Right.
It's also about the premeditation,
Yeah.
the circumstances, and really how society judges different types of killings.
Right.
It's not all equal.
Right.
It's there's a wide spectrum.
So Morgan takes us on a journey through time, starting with ancient murder techniques.
Okay.
Can you imagine a time before sophisticated forensics?
Yeah, it really does make you wonder, how would they even begin to investigate a death back then?
Right.
They didn't have DNA testing or anything like that.
Yeah.
Morgan uses two really contrasting methods to kind of illustrate this point.
Okay.
Poisoning and bludgeoning.
So on one hand, we have poisons like hemlock or belladonna.
Yeah. Readily available from plants and things like that.
Yeah.
So, that's...
It's almost sinister, isn't it? The
Yeah.
idea of someone carefully selecting a poison and then planning the perfect moment to
Right.
administer it. It suggests premeditation.
Absolutely.
A cunning mind at work.
A cunning mind.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Very different than, say, bludgeoning.
Yeah, absolutely. A much more impulsive,
Yeah.
raw, emotionally charged act.
Just think about the clues left behind.
Yeah, totally different story to unravel.
Yeah, this reminds me of that study I read about weapon choice and how knives suggest a more intimate, emotional connection to the victim,
Interesting.
while firearms create distance.
Right.
It's as if bludgeoning was the ancient equivalent of that up close, emotionally driven act.
Yeah. No, that's a fascinating connection.
Yeah.
And it really does kind of highlight how
Yeah.
even in those ancient times,
Yeah.
the method
Yeah.
could reveal something about the perpetrator's psychological state.
Wow. From these very individual acts,
Yeah.
Morgan then shifts focus to a societal
Okay, let's-
approach to murder executions in the medieval period.
Executions. Yeah, think of it as a public spectacle.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
form of gruesome entertainment for the masses.
Right.
But it was also a very powerful message from
Yeah.
the ruling class.
Yeah.
A way to deter crime.
Right.
Reinforce that social order.
Right. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a spectator at one of these events.
Yeah.
Would it have been purely terrifying? Or would there have been some weird sense of festivity
Right. Yeah.
in the crowd?
A little bit of both, probably.
Yeah.
You can't deny the sort of
Right.
the psychology, the mob mentality
Right.
of a public execution.
Right.
It's fascinating.
And the methods themselves speak volumes about the values of that time.
Oh, absolutely. Morgan
Yeah.
describes some truly gruesome practices.
Right.
We've all heard of hanging, of course.
Right.
But what about drawing and quartering?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Pretty awful.
Hard to fathom such a thing being considered suitable punishment today.
No, not at all. Speaking of how far we've come,
Yeah.
Morgan then brings us to the modern era,
Right.
where technology has revolutionized both
Yes.
murder methods
Absolutely.
and the fight against them.
The fight against them. Yeah, it's a two-way street,
It's like an arms race,
An arms race. Yeah.
with technology enabling new, more sophisticated ways of killing, but also providing investigators with powerful tools to solve crimes.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the darker side first.
Okay.
What are some examples of modern murder methods enabled by technology?
Well, think about the possibilities in the digital world.
Right,
Morgan mentions digital manipulation,
right.
cybercrime,
Mm-hmm.
even the potential for hacking into medical devices
It's chilling.
to cause harm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
It really does blur the lines between like reality and fiction.
It does. It sounds like
Yeah.
a plot from a movie, but,
Yeah. Right.
unfortunately, it's something that we have to think about these days.
But on the flip side, technology has also empowered those fighting for justice.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about how far forensic science has come,
Uh-huh.
DNA analysis,
Yeah.
digital forensics,
Yeah.
advanced ballistics.
It's incredible how investigators can now uncover clues that were once completely invisible. It's really remarkable.
It makes you wonder, how has technology changed your own perception of crime and safety?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, I think I definitely find myself being more cautious online these days.
Yeah.
Just knowing
Right.
how much information is out there,
Right.
and how easy it is for people to access it.
Right.
But it's not just about personal safety either.
Right.
It's also about how technology is shaping our understanding of crime
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yeah.
The way evidence is collected,
Wow.
analyzed, and presented in court.
Yeah.
It's all been completely transformed by technology.
So we've gone from ancient poisons to digital manipulation,
It's quite a journey.
from gruesome public executions to the high-tech world of forensic science.
Yeah.
Now let's delve into something that has always captivated me.
Oh.
The psychology behind murder.
Right.
Specifically the minds of serial killers.
Yeah, that's a fascinating area.
I mean, what?
It's dark, but it's fascinating.
It is.
Yeah, Morgan explores this by focusing on some infamous cases.
Right.
And examining some of the prevailing psychological theories that try to explain
Right.
what makes a murderer.
Right, like the psychodynamic perspective,
Yes.
which delves into unconscious motivations and childhood experiences.
Like Freud and all that.
Yeah. And then there's trait theory,
Mm-hmm.
which focuses on personality traits like impulsivity, aggression,
Lack of empathy. Yeah.
lack of empathy.
Yeah, these traits can be crucial not only in profiling
Right.
known killers, but also potentially identifying individuals
Yeah.
who might be at risk of committing violent acts.
Right. Right.
It's a complex
Yeah.
and often unsettling
Yeah.
field of study,
Right.
but it can offer valuable insights into preventing
Right.
future tragedies.
Right. It's like trying to unlock a puzzle box, isn't it? You have
Yeah.
all these different theories, all these pieces,
Right.
but there's no one definitive answer
No, there's not.
to what creates a murderer.
Yeah, and that's what makes this exploration so fascinating.
Yeah.
It challenges our assumptions.
Right.
It forces us to confront this uncomfortable reality that there are no
Right.
easy answers.
So we've touched on some of the psychological theories, but what about the motives?
Okay.
Why do people kill?
Right. Why?
I mean, Morgan breaks down some of the most common ones,
Mm-hmm.
using both real-life examples
Right.
and literary references
Oh, interesting.
to illustrate them.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That cross-disciplinary approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he begins with passion,
Okay.
using Shakespeare's Othello as a prime example
Wow.
of how jealousy can consume an individual,
Yeah.
driving them to acts of unspeakable violence.
Yeah, green-eyed monster and all that.
Right. It's amazing how literature can reflect these dark
It is.
aspects of human nature.
It really is.
Then there's financial gain,
Uh-huh.
often driving more calculated and premeditated acts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Morgan mentions Harold Shipman.
Oh, yeah. A doctor who murdered his patients for inheritance money.
Yeah. For the money,
I mean, that just sends chills down my spine.
it's scary.
To think that someone could be so driven by greed,
Right.
by that insatiable desire for wealth, that they would be willing to take a life.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder that even the most seemingly respectable individuals
Right.
can harbor these dark secrets.
And then, of course, there's revenge,
Oh, yeah. A classic.
a classic motive.
Yeah. Tale as old as time.
It often involves like a perceived injustice,
Mm.
real or imagined,
Right.
driving the perpetrator to seek retribution,
For right or wrong.
to right or wrong.
Yeah. It's almost like they're playing God in a way, isn't it?
It is.
Taking justice into their own hands.
Yeah, but often the method of killing itself is part of the revenge.
Right.
A symbolic act meant to inflict pain and humiliation.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about taking a life.
Right.
It's about sending a message,
Right.
making a statement.
And finally, we come to the most difficult motives to grasp.
Psychological gratification.
Psychological gratification.
This is where we enter the realm of serial killers
Yeah.
like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer.
Two of the most infamous.
Their motives often defy logic
Yeah, they do.
or rational explanation.
They do.
They derive pleasure,
Right.
a sense of power from the act of killing itself.
Yeah, it's like their psychology is so distorted that murder becomes a twisted form of fulfillment,
Yeah.
a way to feed their darkest desires.
It's incredibly disturbing,
It is.
realizing that such individuals exist among us.
It is unsettling. And
Yeah.
it really does raise these questions about the limits of our understanding
Yeah.
of human behavior.
Morgan delves into some of these infamous cases,
Yeah.
examining the chilling details and
Yeah.
psychological profiles.
Trying to piece together the
Yeah.
puzzle of their
Of
mind.
these individuals,
Yeah.
he doesn't just stop at the big names either.
Oh, that's good.
He covers lesser-known cases, which are sometimes even more unsettling.
Right. It's like peeling back layers of darkness,
Yeah.
revealing the vast spectrum of human depravity.
Right. But it's also a reminder that these are the exceptions,
Yeah,
not the rule.
absolutely.
And that's why studying them is so important.
Yes.
It's about trying to understand those outliers,
The
the
extreme.
extremes of human behavior so
Yeah.
that we can better protect
Yes,
ourselves and society as a whole.
exactly. It's like shining a light into the darkest corners,
Yeah.
hoping to find some semblance of understanding amidst the chaos.
And speaking of understanding, I think it's time to shift gears
Okay.
and consider how murder is viewed across different cultures.
Right.
Because while murder is a universal act,
Mm-hmm.
the way it's perceived and the methods used can vary drastically
Sure.
depending on cultural norms
Cultural norms.
and beliefs.
Beliefs, yeah.
What one society might view as a heinous crime, another might see as a justifiable act,
Right.
even a cultural necessity.
Right. And that's where things get really complicated,
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
For instance, the book mentions honor killings,
Yes.
still prevalent in some parts of the world,
Unfortunately.
where the killing is seen as a way to restore family honor
Yeah.
or avenge a perceived transgression.
Right. Well, it's a difficult concept to grasp,
Yeah.
from a Western perspective, where individual rights
Yeah.
are paramount.
Right.
But it highlights the power of these
Yeah.
cultural norms and beliefs
Yeah.
in shaping our understanding
Right.
of right and wrong.
It really makes you realize how much our own cultural background
Yes.
influences our views on justice and
Understand.
violence
Yeah.
from honor killings.
Okay.
We move into another fascinating,
Yeah.
albeit unsettling
Yeah.
intersection of culture and crime,
Right.
ritualistic killings.
Ritualistic killings. Okay.
These killings are steeped in tradition
Uh-huh.
and often linked to spiritual beliefs.
Spiritual beliefs.
Right. Providing a unique and often perplexing challenge
Yeah.
from a legal and ethical standpoint.
Absolutely.
The book mentions historical examples like the Aztec sacrifices,
Oh, wow.
where human life was offered to appease the gods.
Right. A very different worldview
Yeah.
from our modern perspective.
It's difficult to imagine such practices existing today,
Right.
but they remind us that the line between culture and crime
Yeah.
can be incredibly blurry.
Very blurry.
It makes you wonder, how do we judge these acts from our own cultural perspective?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
Can we ever truly be objective
Right.
when we're looking at these
Yeah.
practices
Yeah.
from a completely different cultural lens?
We can't simply impose our own moral framework on other cultures.
No, we can't.
We have to try to understand the context, the
Yeah.
history, the beliefs that drive these actions.
Right. It requires a nuanced approach,
Yeah.
an ability to step outside our own preconceived notions
Right.
and embrace a wider perspective.
Speaking of perspectives, we can't ignore the role of media
Right.
in shaping how we perceive murder.
Well, the media has a huge influence.
Huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, the media has the power to educate or exploit,
Uh-huh.
to inform or sensationalize.
Right. And sadly, sensationalism often wins out,
It does, especially
especially in today's world.
in today's world of instant news and social media.
Instant news,
Yeah.
social media, yeah.
It's all about grabbing attention,
Clicks.
generating clicks,
Right.
and playing on our primal fears.
Absolutely. Fear sells.
Right. Think about the headlines we see every day.
Yeah.
Bloodbath killer, clown, psycho stalker.
It's all designed to shock and terrify.
And while it might be intended to inform, it also contributes to a distorted perception of murder,
It does.
making it harder to understand that complex reality
Right.
behind these acts.
It's a simplification
Yeah,
that can be really dangerous.
it is.
Yeah, we start to see murderers as these monsters,
Right.
these larger-than-life figures,
Right.
which can obscure the fact that they were once
Right.
ordinary people
Yeah.
who made horrific choices.
And it's not just about the words. It's also the images that are chosen.
Right.
Think about the crime scene photos that are
Right.
often splashed across newspapers
Yeah.
and websites.
all the blood and gore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all designed to shock,
Shock and
horrify.
Yeah.
And while it might be intended to be informative, it can also desensitize us to the human cost of these crimes.
Yeah, we become numb to it.
Yeah.
After a while.
We do.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing.
Okay, so we've explored the historical evolution of murder methods, the psychology behind these acts, the cultural influences, and the media's role in shaping our perception of violence.
A lot to unpack.
But before we delve into specific case studies, I think it's time to lay the groundwork by understanding the legal framework surrounding murder.
Yeah, that's essential.
Yeah. It's essential to understand the legal definitions, the different degrees of murder, and the various factors that can influence a verdict.
Absolutely. It's a complex system.
Yeah.
With a lot of nuances.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
How is murder defined legally?
Well, there are slight variations depending on jurisdiction.
Right.
But generally, murder is defined as the unlawful killing of another human being with malice aforethought.
Okay.
It's a crucial distinction that separates murder from manslaughter, where the intent might be less clear.
Malice aforethought, that legal language can feel a bit archaic.
It does, doesn't it?
Could you unpack that for us a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Basically, it means the intent to kill,
the
conscious decision to take another person's life.
Right.
That's really what distinguishes murder from, say, an accidental death or killing in self-defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there are the different degrees of murder, which can significantly impact the severity of the punishment.
Absolutely.
Right.
First-degree murder typically involves premeditation, meaning the killer planned the act beforehand.
Okay.
Second-degree murder, while still intentional, is more impulsive.
Okay.
It occurs in the heat of the moment.
And I remember from the book that forensic evidence,
Yes,
especially DNA analysis, can play a huge role in establishing intent.
Absolutely.
Which can then determine whether a charge is first or second-degree murder.
Exactly. It's often the key piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Providing that concrete evidence that can either corroborate or refute a suspect's account of events.
Of course, we can't discuss the legal implications of murder without mentioning the death penalty, which remains a very contentious issue.
It does.
In many parts of the world.
Yeah, it's a topic fraught with ethical dilemmas.
It is.
And Morgan's book doesn't shy away from exploring those complexities. He delves into the psychological impact on both the condemned and society as a whole, as well as the very real risk of wrongful convictions.
God, it's a sobering thought.
It is.
That the state could take an innocent life.
Yeah.
In the name of justice.
It's a heavy burden.
I mean, it raises these fundamental questions.
Yeah, about our values as a society.
Our values as a society.
Our beliefs about punishment and redemption.
It also highlights the cultural relativity of our views on the death penalty. What one society might view as a just punishment, another might see as barbaric and inhumane.
It's a reminder that our understanding of crime and punishment is shaped by our cultural background, our history, and our own personal beliefs.
So we've covered the basic legal definitions, the different degrees of murder, the role of forensic evidence, and the ethical complexities of the death penalty.
Lots of ground covered.
But to really understand how these legal principles play out in real life, we need to examine specific cases.
I do.
And Morgan's book is filled with fascinating case studies.
It is.
Each one like a window into the intricate workings of the justice system.
Absolutely.
And the human dramas that unfold within it.
It's a real page-turner.
Okay, so let's jump right in and explore some of the most compelling and thought-provoking cases.
Let's do it.
That Morgan highlights in The Anatomy of Murder.
I'm ready when you are. Okay, so let's start with Ted Bundy, a case that I think continues to fascinate and horrify people.
Absolutely.
What I find so compelling about Bundy is this stark contrast between his outward charm and intelligence and the brutal reality of his crimes. I mean, he was, by all accounts, a charismatic and seemingly normal individual.
Yeah, and yet beneath that veneer of normalcy lurked one of the most prolific serial killers in American history.
It's a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving.
Yeah.
That evil can often hide in plain sight.
It challenges us to confront the limitations of our own judgment.
Yeah.
Like, how can we become better at recognizing the signs of danger when someone is so skilled at manipulating those perceptions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Bundy's method of luring his victims, often by feigning injury or impersonating authority figures, really speaks volumes about his manipulative nature and his understanding of human psychology.
He preyed on the kindness of strangers, exploiting their empathy to gain their trust.
Yeah, it's a chilling reminder that evil can often disguise itself as vulnerability, preying on our instinct to help those in need.
Bundy's case really forces us to examine that darker side of human nature. It does, and the ease with which trust can be betrayed.
Speaking of betrayal, let's shift gears and consider Aileen Wuornos, a case that raises challenging questions about societal failures and the complexities of female criminality.
Yeah. Wuornos, unlike Bundy, didn't fit that traditional mold of a serial killer.
No, she didn't.
She killed men who she claimed abused or assaulted her.
Yeah, and her case really sparked a debate.
It did.
About the complexities of victimhood, the cycle of violence, and the often blurred lines between self-defense and premeditated murder.
It's a case that really highlights the systemic issues surrounding the protection of vulnerable women.
Yeah.
Wuornos' story forces us to confront the uncomfortable realities of abuse, poverty, and the often inadequate support systems available to those
on the margins of society.
On the margins of society, absolutely. Wuornos' case is a stark reminder that the path to violence is often paved with hardship, trauma, and a sense of desperation. It challenges us to examine how society fails to protect those most at risk.
Yeah, and how those failures can have tragic consequences.
From the complexities of female criminality, let's delve into a case shrouded in mystery. One that continues to captivate us over a century later. Jack the Ripper?
Jack the Ripper?
I mean, the name itself evokes images of fog-laden streets.
Yes.
Gaslit alleys, and a sense of terror that gripped Victorian London.
The gruesome nature of the Ripper's murders, the specific mutilations he performed on his victims, all suggest a level of anatomical knowledge that has fueled countless theories about his identity.
Oh, yeah, ranging from doctors to butchers to even members of the royal family.
And the fact that he was never caught, that he vanished into the fog as quickly as he appeared, only adds to the mystique.
It's as if he became a phantom, a symbol of those unseen dangers lurking in the shadows of a rapidly growing city.
And the Ripper's case also reflects, I think, the anxieties of the Victorian era. A time of rapid social change, economic disparity, and a growing fear of the underclass. He became a symbol of the dark underbelly of society. A reminder that even in the midst of progress, danger could lurk around every corner.
He embodies that primal fear of the unknown, the darkness that we can't quite grasp or control.
From the fog-shrouded streets of London, let's shift our focus to a case that's equally disturbing. Those for different reasons. Jeffrey Dahmer, whose crimes shocked and horrified the world, takes us deep into the darkest recesses of the human psyche.
Dahmer's case is a chilling reminder that evil can wear a mask of normalcy.
It can.
He was, by all accounts, unassuming and quiet, yet capable of these unspeakable acts of violence and depravity.
His crimes involving cannibalism and necrophilia really challenged our understanding of human nature.
He did.
And forced us to confront the terrifying reality that some individuals are driven by impulses beyond our comprehension.
It's a case that forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality.
It does.
That evil isn't always obvious. That it can lurk beneath the surface, hidden from view, until it explodes in a horrific act of violence.
Moving on from the darkness of Dahmer's crimes, let's explore a case that challenges traditional perceptions of female offenders. Aileen Wuornos. Her story forces us to confront the systemic failures that can lead to violence and to question our assumptions about the nature of female criminality.
Yeah. Wuornos, unlike many female offenders, didn't shy away from violence.
No, he did.
She admitted to killing 7 men,
right?
But she claimed they were all men who had abused or assaulted her.
And her case really sparked the debate about the complexities of victimhood, the cycle of violence, and the often blurred lines between self-defense and premeditated murder.
Yeah, it's a case that raises more questions than answers.
It does.
Forcing us to grapple with the uncomfortable reality.
Yes.
That sometimes the line between victim and perpetrator,
it's a blurry line,
can be tragically blurred.
Now let's shift our attention to the captivating realm of unsolved mysteries.
Okay.
Where the lack of answers, I think, only deepens the intrigue.
There's something about an unsolved case that really captures the imagination.
It does.
It's like a puzzle waiting to be solved. A story with a missing ending.
Right. And Morgan, in The Anatomy of Murder, dedicates a whole chapter to analyzing some of these most notorious unsolved cases.
Yeah.
Starting with the one that's become so ingrained in pop culture.
Okay.
The Zodiac Killer.
The Zodiac Killer.
Northern California in the late 1960s.
Yeah.
A masked killer terrorizing couples.
Right.
Taunting the police with cryptic messages and ciphers.
It's like something out of a Hollywood thriller.
It is.
But the chilling reality is this was a real-life nightmare.
Right.
That left a trail of fear and unanswered questions.
And despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the countless theories, the tireless work of amateur sleuths, the Zodiac's identity remains a mystery to this day.
It's like he vanished into thin air.
Leaving
behind only that trail of cryptic clues and the lingering specter of fear.
The Zodiac case really speaks, I think, to our fascination with the unknown, the allure of the unsolved. Like, we're drawn to the darkness, compelled to try and make sense of the senseless. From the mystery of the Zodiac, let's travel back in time to another unsolved case that has become almost synonymous with Hollywood glamour and tragedy. The Black Dahlia.
The Black Dahlia.
The image of Elizabeth Short, a young, aspiring actress, brutally murdered, and her body posed in a vacant lot, has become seared into our collective memory.
The gruesome details of the case,
the
way her body was mutilated,
horrifying,
captivated the public's imagination and sparked a media frenzy that continues to this day.
And the Black Dahlia case remains unsolved.
It does.
And then that lack of answers has only fueled speculation.
Right. Was it a jealous lover?
Right.
A psychopathic stranger? A Hollywood cover-up?
The theories abound.
They do.
Each one adding another layer to the mystery.
The Black Dahlia case, like the Zodiac,
right,
speaks to our fascination with the dark side of human nature.
Yeah.
Our morbid curiosity about the things that frighten us most.
The things that go bump in the night.
Yeah, but it also reminds us of the fragility of life.
It does.
The vulnerability of dreams and the enduring power of mystery.
From the glamour of Hollywood, we shift to a case that is both heartbreaking and deeply unsettling. The murder of JonBenet Ramsey.
Oh, God.
A 6-year-old beauty queen found dead in her own home.
Right.
A crime scene seemingly staged and a family shrouded in suspicion.
I mean, the JonBenet case is a tragic reminder that darkness can invade.
Yeah.
Even the most seemingly idyllic
It can. Yeah, and the fact that it remains unsolved even after all these years only adds to the tragedy.
It does. The Ramsey case became a media sensation.
Oh, it did.
With speculation and conspiracy theories swirling around the family and the investigation.
Right.
It's a case that raises uncomfortable questions about the role of the media, the nature of truth.
Right.
And the difficulty of finding justice when the lines between fact and fiction become blurred.
The Ramsey case is a stark reminder that some mysteries may never be fully solved, leaving behind only a trail of unanswered questions and a sense of enduring sadness.
From the tragedy of JonBenet Ramsey, we return to the fog-shrouded streets of Victorian London and the case that continues to haunt us. Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper back again.
Over a century has passed since the Ripper terrorized the city.
Right.
But his crimes continue to fascinate and horrify.
They do.
The Ripper's victims all women,
right,
all murdered in a similarly brutal fashion,
yes,
have become almost mythical figures.
they have.
Their lives and deaths intertwined with the legend of the killer who was never caught.
That's part of the allure, isn't it?
It is.
The mystery, the unknown.
The Ripper case speaks to our fascination with the past.
Yes.
Our desire to make sense of historical events.
Right.
And our enduring fascination with the psychology of those who commit such heinous acts.
It's like he's become a boogeyman of history.
He has.
A symbol of the darkness.
Yeah.
That can lurk even in the most civilized societies.
And finally, we have a case that blends murder mystery with Hollywood glamour.
Right.
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe.
Her death in 1962 was officially ruled a probable suicide. But the circumstances surrounding it have always been shrouded.
Yeah.
In speculation.
Right.
Fueled by her iconic status.
Her iconic status,
Her connections to powerful men and the rumors of affairs.
The rumors.
And cover-ups.
Yeah.
Marilyn's death. Like, her life has become the stuff of legend.
It has.
A tale whispered in hushed tones that may never be fully solved.
Right. And her case really highlights how celebrity can distort our perceptions of truth.
Yeah.
How fame can create a mythology that obscures the reality of a person's life and death.
I mean, all of these unsolved cases remind us that sometimes the most compelling stories are those without a definitive ending.
Right, and they challenge us to examine the evidence, consider different perspectives, and to really grapple with the ambiguity of those unanswered questions.
Okay, so we've delved into this chilling world of unsolved mysteries cases that continue to fascinate and frustrate us with their lack of resolution.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, though, because I think it's important to acknowledge the role that public interest can play in these investigations.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's that public pressure, the outcry for justice, the tireless work of those amateur sleuths that keeps these cold cases from being forgotten, that pushes law enforcement to revisit old evidence and pursue new leads.
That media attention, the online communities dedicated to solving these mysteries, the armchair detectives poring over every detail.
It can all contribute.
It does.
To keeping these cases alive, to ensuring that the victims are not forgotten, and that the pursuit of justice continues.
And technology is playing an increasingly important role, I think, in solving cold cases.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, DNA analysis has revolutionized forensic science.
It has.
Allowing investigators to revisit old evidence and uncover new clues that were once invisible.
It's incredible to think about.
It is.
How a tiny trace of DNA preserved for decades can suddenly unlock a mystery.
It can.
Providing that crucial link that connects a suspect to a crime scene.
It's like the past is reaching out to us, offering a chance to right a wrong, to bring closure to a case that was long thought to be unsolvable.
And it's not just DNA analysis either. It's the advancements in digital forensics, facial recognition technology, even artificial intelligence that are giving investigators these new tools to revisit old cases with fresh eyes.
It's really remarkable how technology is helping to breathe a new life into these cold cases, bringing justice to victims and their families who've been waiting for answers, sometimes for decades.
Sometimes for decades,
It's a reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles, the pursuit of truth.
The pursuit of truth
can prevail.
However, I think it's important to acknowledge the ethical considerations involved in reinvestigating these cold cases.
Absolutely. I mean, reopening old wounds can be incredibly painful.
It can.
For the families involved.
Very much so.
Yeah, and it can be incredibly challenging for investigators to separate fact from fiction.
Absolutely, especially when you're dealing with cases that have been subject to years of speculation, media hype, public scrutiny.
When there's always the risk of focusing on the wrong suspect. Of being misled by incomplete or biased information.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
Trying to find the truth without causing further harm. Respecting the memories of the victims. While also acknowledging the need for justice.
And that's why it's so crucial for investigators to approach these cases with sensitivity. With a deep respect for the victims and their families, and with a commitment to following the evidence wherever it may lead.
wherever it may lead.
Even if it leads to uncomfortable truths.
Even if it leads to uncomfortable truths.
Now, turning our attention to the future of murder methods.
Oh.
I mean, it's a chilling thought to consider.
It is.
How technology and societal shifts might shape the ways in which people...
Yeah, how will people kill each other in the future?
Kill each other.
It's a scary thought.
It's a topic that often feels like something out of a dystopian science fiction novel.
It does.
But the reality is that the future of murder is likely to be far more complex and nuanced than anything we can currently imagine.
I think one area that's particularly vulnerable to exploitation is the digital realm.
Okay.
I mean, cybercrime is already on the rise.
Yeah.
And as our lives become increasingly interconnected, the potential for digital murder, I think, will only increase.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine someone hacking into a self-driving car, a medical device, even a smart home, with the intent to cause harm.
It's a terrifying thought.
It is.
But it's not entirely far-fetched. Not at all.
And as artificial intelligence becomes more sophisticated, the potential for AI-assisted murder becomes a chilling possibility.
Yeah, imagine a killer using an AI program to stalk their victim, to analyze their routines, to identify vulnerabilities, to plan the perfect crime, or even to carry out the act itself remotely.
It's a scenario that blurs the lines between human agency and technological control.
Yeah, where does the human end and the machine begin?
It raises unsettling questions about accountability and the nature of evil in a technologically advanced world.
And then there's the potential for genetic manipulation to be weaponized. I mean, imagine someone with the knowledge and resources to create a designer virus, a targeted genetic attack that could kill a specific individual or even an entire population.
The implications are staggering.
They are, both in terms of the potential for harm and the ethical challenges involved in preventing such atrocities.
It's a future that requires us to be vigilant, to consider the potential consequences of these technologies before they're fully realized, and to engage in thoughtful discussions about the ethical boundaries we need to establish in order to prevent these dystopian possibilities from becoming reality.
It's clear that the future of murder is likely to be as complex and challenging as the history.
This act itself.
It requires us to approach this topic with a critical eye. To think beyond the headlines and to consider the multitude of factors that contribute to violence. Both now and in the years to come.
It's a daunting task.
It is a daunting task.
But it's one that we can't afford to shy away from.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of murder, I think it's crucial to turn our attention to a topic
that's often overshadowed by the sensationalism surrounding these crimes. The victim.
It's victims.
It's easy to get caught up in the details of the investigation, of the psychology of the killer, the legal proceedings. But we can't forget that at the heart of every murder case is a victim. A life tragically cut short. A family left shattered by grief and loss.
So let's take a moment to consider the impact of murder on the victims' families. The ripple effects that extend far beyond that immediate tragedy.
They have to deal with the unimaginable grief, the trauma, the loss of a loved one in the most horrific way imaginable.
And they have to navigate the legal system, the media scrutiny.
The public's often insatiable appetite for details about their loved one's death.
It's a burden that no one should have to bear. And yet so many families do.
They do.
With courage and resilience that is truly remarkable.
It's important for us as true crime enthusiasts to be mindful of their pain.
Absolutely.
To avoid sensationalizing their tragedy. And to approach their stories with sensitivity and compassion.
Because ultimately it's about remembering the human costs of these crimes, the ripple effects that extend far beyond the immediate victim.
So let's talk about some specific ways we can engage with true crime narratives in a more victim-centered manner. I think first and foremost, we need to be mindful of the language we use. We need to avoid language that dehumanizes victims or glorifies their killers.
Let's remember that these are real people with lives, dreams, loved ones, and legacies that extend far beyond the tragic circumstances of their deaths.
We should avoid reducing victims to statistics or case numbers. You know, let's focus on their humanity,
Yeah.
their individuality, their contributions to the world.
Absolutely.
Let's honor their memories by acknowledging their full lives.
Right.
Not just the tragic circumstances of their deaths.
And we should be mindful of the images
Yes.
and details that are shared.
The images that we choose to share.
We need to avoid sharing graphic content or information that might be upsetting to the victims' families.
Especially online.
Especially in online forums where sensitivity can sometimes be overlooked in the pursuit of sensationalism.
It's about finding a balance, between satisfying our curiosity and respecting the boundaries of those who've been directly impacted by these tragedies.
It's about remembering that behind every case file, every crime scene photo,
every headline,
there are real people who are grieving, who are trying to make sense of a senseless act.
Who
are trying to rebuild their lives in the aftermath of unimaginable loss.
When we're consuming true crime content, I think it's important to be aware of the potential for bias, sensationalism, and exploitation.
We need to be critical consumers of information.
We do.
To question the narratives that are presented to us and to be wary of sources that seem to be profiting from someone else's pain.
Absolutely. It's about being informed, not just entertained. And it's about supporting ethical storytelling. Choosing to engage with content that prioritizes truth, accuracy, and respect for the victims.
And if we encounter content that seems exploitative or disrespectful,
we need to speak up.
We
have a responsibility as consumers of true crime media to hold creators accountable for the way they portray these tragedies.
Absolutely. It's about advocating for a more responsible and compassionate approach to true crime, one that prioritizes the victims and their families, while still acknowledging our collective fascination with these dark and often perplexing cases.
It's a tough balance.
It is.
But it's one that we need to strive for.
We do.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's about finding a way to learn from these tragedies without exploiting them, to satisfy our curiosity without sacrificing our empathy.
Now let's shift gears and explore an aspect of true crime that often captivates our imagination. The role of forensic science. In solving these intricate puzzles.
I mean, forensic science has played such a pivotal role.
It has.
In shaping our understanding of murder.
It's given us the tools to uncover the truth.
Yes.
To separate fact from fiction. To bring justice to victims and families.
It's like shining a light into the darkness.
It is.
Revealing those hidden clues.
The hidden clues.
That can unlock the secrets of a crime.
And Morgan, in The Anatomy of Murder, does a brilliant job of highlighting that crucial role that forensics plays in both historical and contemporary murder cases.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is forensic science? And how is it applied to murder investigations?
So in its simplest terms, forensic science is the application of scientific principles and techniques to matters of law. It's about using science to solve crimes, to reconstruct events, to identify suspects, and to ultimately determine guilt or innocence.
So it's like a detective's toolkit.
It is.
Providing them with the scientific methods and technologies to analyze evidence and piece together the puzzle of a crime.
Exactly. And when it comes to murder investigations, forensic scientists play a crucial role in collecting, analyzing, and interpreting a wide range of evidence. I mean, they might analyze fingerprints, blood stains, DNA samples, ballistics, trace evidence, digital footprints, you name it. The possibilities are vast, and the field is constantly evolving as new technologies emerge.
It's incredible to think about how much information can be gleaned from seemingly insignificant details. A stray hair, a fleck of paint.
A digital footprint.
A digital footprint left behind on a social media platform.
It's like a hidden language waiting to be deciphered.
And over the years, forensic science has advanced dramatically. I mean, the tools and techniques available to investigators today are light years ahead of what they had even a few decades ago.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible how far we've come.
Think about DNA analysis, for instance.
DNA analysis.
It's revolutionized the field of criminal justice.
It has. There's no doubt about that. It's helped solve countless cold cases
Right.
that were once considered unsolvable.
Right.
But it's also been instrumental in exonerating innocent people who were wrongly convicted based on faulty or circumstantial evidence.
It's a powerful tool for justice.
It is.
But it's important to remember that it's just one tool in the investigator's arsenal.
One tool, right? It's not the be-all, end-all.
Right. And it's not just DNA. There have been significant advancements in ballistics, toxicology, fingerprint analysis.
Bloodstain pattern analysis.
Bloodstain pattern analysis.
Digital forensics, you name it.
The field of forensic science is constantly evolving, pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and providing investigators with increasingly sophisticated methods for uncovering the truth.
It's an exciting time to be in the field, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The digital realm in particular has opened up a whole new frontier in forensic science.
It has.
I mean, investigators can now recover deleted files, track online activity, analyze social media posts, and piece together a suspect's digital footprint with remarkable precision.
It's fascinating and a bit unsettling to realize how much information we leave behind in the digital world.
It is, isn't it? It's like a digital fingerprint that we can't really erase, no matter how hard we try.
It's a reminder that even in the age of anonymity and privacy concerns, our actions leave traces. And those traces can be used to tell a story, to reveal our secrets, and in some cases, to solve a crime.
So let's dive into some specific examples of how forensic science has been used to crack these high-profile murder cases. I mean, Morgan highlights some truly fascinating cases in his book. But I think one that stands out for its impact on public awareness of forensic science is the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh, the O.J. trial. That was a media spectacle.
It was a media circus, wasn't it?
Yeah, broadcast live on television.
Yeah, captivating the nation.
Captivating the nation.
Sparking all these heated debates about race celebrity and the power of the legal system.
And forensic evidence, particularly DNA evidence, played a central role in that trial.
It did. The prosecution presented DNA evidence linking Simpson to the crime scene. But the defense team very skillfully challenged the handling and analysis of that evidence.
Yeah, they raised questions about contamination lab protocols, the potential for human error.
Exactly. And the Simpson case, while controversial in its outcome, really highlighted the complexities of forensic science.
Yeah, it demonstrated the importance of proper procedure chain of custody, meticulous attention to detail.
Right, in order to ensure the integrity of the evidence.
It also demonstrated the persuasive power of skilled legal counsel.
Absolutely.
The ability to sway a jury. And the crucial role that human interpretation plays in the presentation and analysis of scientific evidence.
It's a reminder that forensic science, while powerful, is not infallible.
No, it's not.
It's subject to human error interpretation.
And
even manipulation.
From the media frenzy of the O.J. trial, let's shift gears to another case where forensic evidence played a crucial, though often confusing role. The murder of JonBenet Ramsey.
Oh, the Ramsey case.
The Ramsey case, like the Simpson trial, captured the nation's attention.
It did.
But for very different reasons. It was a tragedy that seemed to defy explanation.
Absolutely. A young girl's life brutally cut short in her own home.
With a crime scene that seemed both meticulously staged and riddled with inconsistencies.
The forensic evidence in that case was particularly perplexing.
It was.
There was DNA evidence found at the scene that didn't match any family members.
Suggesting the involvement of an intruder.
But there are also questions about the integrity of the crime scene, the potential for contamination, the handling of the evidence.
The Ramsey case is a prime example of how forensic science can sometimes raise more questions than answers.
Yeah, more questions than answers, and it highlighted the importance of context. You know, the limitations of scientific analysis in isolation. And the need for investigators to consider all possible explanations, no matter how uncomfortable or unsettling they may be.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even with the advancements in forensic science, some cases remain stubbornly resistant to easy answers.
Yeah, they do.
Leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a sense of enduring mystery.
And speaking of cases that have stumped investigators for years, let's turn our attention to the Golden State Killer. A case that demonstrates both the power of new forensic techniques and the ethical dilemmas they can raise.
Yeah, the Golden State Killer case was cold for decades.
It was.
But investigators were eventually able to use a relatively new technique called forensic genealogy.
Forensic genealogy to crack the case.
It's a fascinating approach, isn't it?
It is.
Investigators use DNA evidence from the crime scenes to create a family tree, which ultimately led them to the suspect.
To Joseph DeAngelo.
Joseph DeAngelo, yeah. It was a groundbreaking case.
Yeah.
And it's opened up a whole new avenue for solving these cold cases.
But it's also raised some important ethical questions.
It has.
About privacy and the use of genetic databases in criminal investigations.
Absolutely. You know, the use of forensic genealogy raises important questions about consent.
Yeah. About the potential for misuse of genetic information.
Right.
And about that delicate balance between individual privacy and public safety.
It's a reminder that as technology advances, we need to be mindful of the ethical implications to ensure that these powerful tools are used responsibly. And that the pursuit of justice doesn't come at the expense of individual rights.
So as we've seen through these case examples, forensic science has undoubtedly played a transformative role in solving murder cases.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to acknowledge that it's not a perfect science.
Right. There's always the potential for human error, for bias, for misinterpretation of evidence.
Absolutely. And as consumers of true crime, we need to be aware of these limitations.
Right.
We need to be critical thinkers.
Yes.
To question assumptions, to consider multiple perspectives, and to always remember that behind every piece of evidence, every forensic report, every lab result, there's a human story waiting to be told.
And that human story should always be at the center of our understanding of these cases.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the anatomy of murder.
It has been a fascinating and unsettling journey, exploring the dark world of murder.
From ancient techniques to modern advancements.
Yeah, from the psychology of killers to the ethical considerations.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
And it's clear that this is a topic that continues to fascinate and challenge us.
It does, as we grapple with the complexities of human nature and the enduring mystery of why we kill.
And as we conclude this exploration, let's remember to approach this subject with sensitivity, with a critical eye, and with a deep respect for the victims and their families.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the anatomy of murder.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe.